Are you ready to break free from a conventional life and achieve financial independence through your version of tiny living, but you're feeling stuck trying to figure out the money part? Does the pressure to conform to societal norms make it even more difficult to embrace an unconventional lifestyle? Well, you're in the right place. I'm Laura Lynch, host of the Less House, More Moolah podcast, where every Thursday I'll bring you captivating interviews with individuals who have successfully made the transition to tiny living. They defied expectations and are thriving in their unique lives. We'll also dive deep into industry resources to address common financial concerns on your tiny journey. Together, we'll explore the emotional and practical aspects of pursuing an alternative lifestyle. I will describe a clear framework for project planning and cash flow management. Our goal is to intentionally build financial security and make a positive impact through our alternative American dream. So gear up for an exciting and empowering journey to create a life that truly resonates with you. Let's dive into today's episode and take the first steps towards financial independence and purpose through tiny living. Well, here we go. So this is Laura with Less House, More Moolah podcast. This is our first in-person interview recording from my tiny house. So I'm super excited to be here with my neighbor, Kate Jacobsen. Mm-hmm. And we are going to be talking about your tiny living journey. I don't know if you ever thought about it as tiny living prior to me looking at you that way, but small spaces of all kinds. So, Kate, welcome. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you.
On the podcast today. So, let's get started with you telling me a little bit about where you came from and what your house was like for you growing up.
Well, most recently, I came from living in Chicago for 30 years. And the last place I lived there was on the west side of Chicago, where we had a lot of empty lots. So I was able to have a garden with the neighbors, and I had chickens in the backyard. And it was a nice little idyllic area for the time being. However, it was the new hot spot in town, so rents were double, but we still didn't have a coffee shop. So, but that was my most recent experience in Chicago. And growing up, I lived in a pretty typical farmhouse in northwestern Iowa. It was probably from the 1850s or thereabout. And so it wasn't, a big grand Victorian like a lot of farmhouses, but, your basic farmhouse. And when I was growing up earlier, there was a wood furnace, or, we gathered wood and we had coal to power the furnace in the basement. And we had a windmill that pumped the water up the hill to the cistern. And so along the way, we got a gas furnace and a pump for a new well. But in the beginning, it was, more rural, I guess you would say. But we always had electricity and plumbing and, so it was modern by those kind of standards. But I did witness my grandparents' lifestyle. They lived in more remote farmsteads usually. My grandpa always drove horses because he never learned to drive a tractor. And they had a wooden sink in the kitchen and a hand pump for the water, a wood stove for cooking, and, flat irons on the stove for ironing. They milked a cow. They raised poultry, and I was very fascinated by that. And of course, then that also implies there was the outhouse and the Sears catalog, and that wasn't for reading, but and a cave for holding canned goods and potatoes and such. So that lifestyle really still inspired me. Mm-hmm. I feel like our culture there was more geared towards pioneer culture, mm-hmm. and not as much toward the urban or manufacturing culture. Mm-hmm. So that's how I grew up.
Yeah, I love that story. My great grandparents had an outhouse and the Sears catalog and all of that. And I think those early experiences, I talk to guests about this a lot. Those early experiences really like form something deep inside you that later on sort of, pops out and you go, I really want to get that same level of fulfillment or self-sufficiency as what I saw growing up. So now, would you describe for listeners what your current home is like?
Well, it is a 12 by 24 shed with a porch on the side that I converted into I guess you would say, a studio apartment. It has pretty much a full-size kitchen, bedroom, a large closet because I like my clothes, and I have like 2 chairs for a living room. Hey, priorities. So it suits me very well. It's about 288 square feet. And then I just added an 8 by 8 bathroom addition. So it's kind of a large bathroom, but I'm really enjoying that addition as well because it has a skylight roof, and it's beautiful, and the moonlight comes in, and in the middle of the night, you could see the shooting stars.
Yeah, the full moon has been very intense the last few days.
Yeah.
So how did you find this home, and what was it like when you purchased it?
Well, I was in Chicago, and I was looking at listings on my laptop in bed. And I was looking at a lot of places, Taos, Santa Fe. I wasn't very crazy about Albuquerque, or, they all seemed fine for what they were, but I didn't want to go from Chicago to another just big city. So I was also looking at Ojo Caliente, and there's what's this Abiquiu place? What's this? There doesn't seem to be anything out there. Hey, there's nothing out there. So, and it was actually very easy. I drove over here in January. I looked at 12 places on my list, and they all kind of fell short. But then my realtor came and the next day, and I got to look at this area, and I realized how large it was, and I got to view what they call a rider's cabin that was on the property when I moved there. It was all finished, but no electricity, no running water, no septic or anything. But I just thought, well, I think this is the spot, and just some about the sky, the views, and it's 5 miles from a gas station. So I said, well, this is it. And that's how that happened.
So it only had one structure on it, and then you've added another.
That's correct.
And an addition.
Yeah. Yes, I am using that previous cabin for a workshop, which I'm very happy about, because if I didn't have my work in textiles and such, I could live in a very small space, but my materials and my machines and stuff take a lot of space. So, and it's the same size, 12 by 24. So I'm kind of living tiny in perspective to other houses that I lived in before, but it still feels to me like I have the full outdoors. I have, 10 acres to hang around on. So it doesn't feel like I'm cramped at all, really.
So it sounds like that this is the first time you've lived in a tiny space.
That's correct. Previously, I have lived in larger spaces with maybe I had a room in a large communal space with a lot of other roommates. So in a sense, I have lived tiny in a way, but I had the run of the whole house, the common areas. But this is the first time I've had one all by myself.
Yeah. So how did you get comfortable with this notion as you were making your move? The idea of going from a more traditional Chicago home to now making use of 2 different shed buildings and the outdoors?
Well, honestly, I feel like in my previous life, sometimes I rented and sometimes I owned, and I felt like renting has its place, but in the long run, there's nothing like investing in your own thing, and so you have something in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was living in that life, I was a fashion designer, a costumer, an actress, working in the food industry, all that kind of thing. And I really put aside my feeling for nature until I moved to that place where I had a chance to do gardening and such. So my focus started shifting into sort of a coming home type of a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And the work that I was doing in the theater and such, the flavor of that changed. The flavor of the city changed. So I'm like, you know what? How about a little nature? And so I used to buy things to sort of, I don't know, fill up a hole that I felt like was missing, or perhaps to prove something to myself that this is the kind of thing that a person like who I really am would buy. And I don't have to prove that to myself anymore because I'm just being that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those materials that I bought for those purposes, don't seem relevant anymore, and I'm not as attached anymore. So I did let most of that go when I came here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can do another load of carrying out pretty soon here, because a lot of those clothes, a lot of the tchotchkes and such that were signifying to me the life that I wanted to live, they no longer are relevant. So I feel like that really helped me to pare down and prepare myself for just living pretty minimally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that gets to the question about minimalism and how you think about it, and whether you think that's a value of yours now, or kind of how that's evolved for you. It sounds like that coming home to yourself has created that opportunity to have more with less. What other values have you seen in this lifestyle that you now have?
Well, for one thing, when I'm not doing that shopping and consuming, obviously that saves money, and also it saves space, and that enables you to just have room to breathe in your house. And also, there's something about shifting priorities. I do like stuff. I like beauty. I like art. But I'm getting so that I don't have to own it. I feel the experiences are more important than the things that I have. And if I have fewer things, then I might pay more for something that I really like, then I would just have one thing that I really like and not a bunch of things that aren't going to last or I don't really care that much about.
Mm-hmm.
So I am beginning to understand more clearly that things were kind of substitutes for experiences and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess relationships would be the thing that I would like to pursue more now. Relationship with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and of course my chickens and my dog, but also with people who are experiencing the same kind of thing and experiencing nature that's all around us.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it partly is just a time of life that I feel it's more important to experience things.
Mm-hmm. So how have the people that are important to you in your life reacted to this, and how have you processed it?
Tell you the truth, I don't think the people that are really important to me, I don't think they were surprised. The ones that really kind of know me, they're like, oh yeah, I could see her doing that. But they're inspired and happy for me. And so I really haven't had to process it very much at all. Just brings me joy that they are encouraging and inspired by my trip.
Yeah. So that means they're really true people in your life, right? When they're happy for you, when you do something outside of the box.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that it hasn't all been, rosy all the time. Tell us about the craziest situation that you have faced and how you've kind of, gotten through it and what you learned about yourself.
Oh, well, I tell you the truth, I was very frustrated last fall. I had been there full time, permanent. Well, previously I'd been back and forth for about 3 years. So I came in permanently May 20th of last year. So then by the fall, everything should be done. Winter's coming. And, why isn't everything done? Oh my God, I'm such a failure. And, I like to have everything done all at once, but that's not the way it goes. And there are delays that you don't have anything to do with. You can't control a lot of things. And sometimes the weather's really harsh, preventing you from doing tasks. And I finally just looked at it and I went, hey, look, are you okay? Do you have heat? It's going to be winter. Do you have heat? Okay. You have a solid structure that closes. You have insulation, windows, etc., a door that locks. You're all right. You have a place to put food, to keep it fresh. You have access to water.
Mm-hmm.
You can wash up. I mean, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was a big relief, really. And I just learned that I can do this. You just have to ratchet down your expectations about what things should be. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to delete the word should from my vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like expectations are the ruin of everything, right? And I have lived my life with such expectations. There's even that book, right? Great Expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm reading a book recently called The Gap and the Gain. And it helps you to always be viewing your life from the perspective of where you came from and to be evaluating your progress instead of evaluating your shortcomings against an ideal. And so I think that's all of our spiritual journeys, right, is to learn to accept ourselves from where we are and to appreciate how far we've come and stop holding ourselves out for some sort of ideal of where we think we should be.
Uh-huh.
So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So have you had any other interactions with folks in this community or others that are also doing something similar to you?
Well, I did come upon some people who, ironically, are weavers from Chicago, and they are also builders. They built their own homes with their own hands. One is an earth ship, which does the tires and the berm and the greenhouse. And their house is just amazing. And they've worked very hard for 10 years and they're still working. And they have a life that I think they love. It looks as if they love their life. And another friend has built her home with earth bags, mm-hmm. and it's a beautiful place. They each have a life that they built on the land, and they are trying to make as little, say, impact to the environment as possible. So they're trying all these sustainable type practices, such as, reusing your gray water, etc. Mm-hmm. So I just really enjoy meeting them and hearing what they went through. And, and they still are working at it even after 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I'll get some perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're great people. I just feel like they're free to have a life that they love.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my goal too. I mean, I already love my life. So I just feel like I'm going to be able to make more art. How about just sit and look, enjoy, just be.
Yeah.
I've kind of been attracted to that monk-like existence, maybe not with all the aspects of a monk, but that contemplative life, I guess you would say more clearly.
Yeah. Is the low impact something that's important to you? Are you working on that too?
Yes. I'm living off grid at this time, and I might have spent as much money already on solar as I would have if I just hooked up electricity to the grid. And technically in New Mexico, our electricity is usually from the sun anyway. But I just wanted to be independent of the, power failures and such, which has happened a couple of times since I've been here. People are like, oh, the power went out. I'm like, oh, I didn't know because I don't have that. But yes, so I feel like it's the principle of the thing because I can, then that's why I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I've decided for now, and I believe that that's the right decision, against putting septic in because water here is so precious. And, in my former life in cities and even out on the farm, water is not as valued as it is here. I mean, it should be respected. So that's why I am catching the rain. And I do have access to a friend who brings water up, a neighbor who delivers water if necessary. So if I need to buy it, but it's well water, and that's a lot different than rainwater. I have been buying drinking water, but the rest of the water that I'm using is for bathing, washing, watering plants, feeding chickens, watering chickens. So I feel like it's because you can. You should. I mean, there's that should word, but for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that I don't have to have, say, a lot of electricity. I don't have to have a toaster, an electric can opener, a hair blower. Of course, here in New Mexico, your hair is wet and then it's dry. Yes. Boom. So that's fortunate. I don't have to have electric curling iron, etc. I've just pared down my life to a point where I can provide the resources that I need and match my lifestyle to the resources that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. This is kind of funny that we're recording this right here in the kitchen, right? So I can pull out my hand crank, food processor that I bought that works so good.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I need that.
It's
later.
For sure. So do you know anybody else who's thinking about this, crazy life that we're living out here? And if you don't, what do you say to people? There's a lot of folks out there that are reconsidering the traditional American dream. What advice or thoughts do you have for them about what you have done and, what might be a good avenue for them to explore?
Well, I would say that, first of all, if you are not really happy in your life, maybe do you think you deserve to just be happy? Maybe you should think about that. And what is happiness for you? So perhaps if you thrive on working 12, 14 hours a day at what you're doing, if you're happy doing what you're doing, great. But if you could improve things by making a change, do your research, but don't take too long researching. Just go ahead, just do it. And also, it's probably pretty important if you have a partner, they should be on the same page, or get to the common ground. Now, my dog is fine with our move because she's like, well, whatever, where's my food dish? So she was up with that. But I think that's one of the most important aspects of why people might fall off, this plan. So what else? I'd say, like we talked about before, see what you can do step by step, and don't try to be like me and want everything all at once. But it takes patience and time, and things maybe things don't go your way sometimes. And it might be better that it didn't, because something better more apt, more suitable might happen.
Yeah, there's beauty in the journey, right? And if we can embrace the journey instead of being so focused on the destination.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson though.
Yeah. Right.
So I always talk to all of my guests about the financial security piece of this, because I feel like so many people who are embarking on a tiny living journey are doing it partly to help set themselves forward from a financial security perspective. How do you view this lifestyle and its interaction with financial security? Were there financial elements to your decision, or?
Well, initially I was coming here because a family was thinking to move in the area, and I wanted to be close. But I always knew I wanted to build my own home someday, and I didn't know if I would ever be able to do it. Definitely, I would never be able to do it in Chicago the way I was living. I would never be able to get by a lot of the, I guess, constrictions, the crime, the finding property close in. I mean, it's just out of reach. So I was happy with my life in that way, in that I had a lot of activities that I was working in that was fulfilling. But as far as owning a property and building my own house, this was probably one of the best options I could find. I used to pay a lot for rent and mortgages, and the amount of hours that I had to put in at a job. So I wasn't even at home to enjoy my home. And also, I remember when my son was growing up, I was a single mom and most of the time, and I had a lot of jobs, but I remember that mostly what he wanted from me was just me. He didn't really want a lot of toys and stuff. And of course, the experiences were fun, but we did all the free stuff. He just wanted me, really, the time, and a walk or a chat, or, pretending that a cardboard box was a boat, So I believe going forward that especially young people with children who are thinking that, oh, tiny home, I don't know if I can raise children like that. Well, how about they want you. They don't necessarily want the big room and a lot of toys. Of course, they want a lot of toys, but they don't really value them over time. Like my son just remembers our nights when we had music night and we had a Diet Coke and split a pack of ho-hos and played a cassette tape and danced. And, that was one of our best memories. So I would encourage anyone to raise children to have an example of how life can be really fun and rich without a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there are definitely some constraints on the tiny space when you have families, but you're so right. Kids grow up, they just want those relationships more than anything. And, maybe sometimes we lose sight of that because of sort of the norms that we're programmed to sort of conform to. But yep, I really appreciate that, focusing on relationships over money and focusing on, the depth of experience over things. And all of that is really tenets of the tiny living community, I think. So that is a great point to kind of head out on. Kate, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think there are so many women out there that will find you so inspirational because you're doing this thing and you're enjoying your journey and enjoying the coming closer to yourself and your true nature. And that's why I am here doing the thing that I'm doing too. So thanks for sharing that. And we will definitely look forward to catching up with you some more later.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Less House, More Moolah. To access valuable financial tips and resources tailored to your tiny living journey, join our exclusive community at thetinyhouseadvisor.com. Here you'll find a supportive network of like-minded individuals committed to helping each other navigate the challenges and celebrate the victories of embracing a minimalist lifestyle. So don't miss out on the opportunity to be part of this empowering tribe. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for another insightful episode of Less House, More Moolah, where we'll continue to explore practical solutions and inspiring stories to help you create the life you've always dreamed of.
Please see the show notes for important disclosure regarding the Tiny House Advisor LLC and this episode.